The goal of this video is to show you how rootsTrust's file cabinets afford you a flexible and reliable way of managing links between the persons, events, families, and sources of your database and external document and multimedia image files. My personal genealogical database that I manage with rootsTrust has almost 3,400 links to external files located in my rootsTrust file cabinets. These links are very precious to me since they were all created manually over a period of more than 20 years. Their loss would be devastating to me. As I mentioned in another video, years ago I had the unpleasant experience of losing the linkage between the database of the genealogy program I was using at the time and several hundred external files. I swore then that that would never happen to me again, and decided to write a genealogical data management system that would prevent that from happening. That system is rootsTrust. The concept of the file cabinet was my solution, a compartment or designated area in the file system of your computer for storing the document and multimedia image files that you wish to link to your database. rootsTrust will not allow you to link a file that is not in a file cabinet. You can have as little as one file cabinet, but that would be pointless since it defeats the purpose of the file cabinet concept. In my opinion, 2 to 6 would afford you the greatest flexibility. If you have only one file cabinet, you cannot move directories, or you might call them folders, around inside the file cabinet without breaking linkages. If you have multiple file cabinets, as I do, you can freely move them to other directories or other devices and only temporarily break the linkages. I started out with only 2 file cabinets, one for documents and another for photos. This number has gradually grown to 7 over the years. Let's take a look at my file cabinets and how I use them. So I click on Options, Preferences, and File Cabinets. And here they are, 7 of them. The reason why I have 7 is because I like to compartmentalize my files by type and subject. As it turns out, each file cabinet is a directory on my G drive, which is a partition on my hard drive where I store all my genealogy files and nothing else. Let's take a look at it. There's the G drive, and this. They are file cabinets. Those directories are file cabinets. So let's open up the Documents file cabinet and see what we have. For every person for which I have a document image stored, there is a subdirectory with his or her surname, and underneath that there is a directory for each person that bears that surname, and for the file for the directory name I use the person's forename or forenames followed by the person's person ID, the unique rootsTrust identifier for that person in parentheses. So even if we have people with the same name, as in the case of Brunt, we see we have a number of people that have the same forename. Each person has its own his own directory based on not only his name but his person ID. Now if we back up and look at the photographs directory, we'll find here I have 2 file cabinets inside this directory, people and places. And we have the same scheme here. If we back up and look at heraldry, again, the same scheme. Now let's take a look at how they're used in the program. Okay, this individual, as we can tell here from the announcements, the green text on the left panel buttons, that there are documents and there are multimedia image files. So if we click on documents and click on one of the entries in this table, we can see the path of that file down here, which starts with G:"documents, which happens to be the path of my documents file cabinet. So then if we click on multimedia and click on this entry here, we'll look at the path of that. We see it starts off with G photographs people. That is the file cabinet path. If we go back to the event summary and click on his burial event and documents, we see that this path for this document starts off with G:/cemetery records, which is another file cabinet. If we change persons here, go to John Brooke, we see that we have an announcement here for heraldry. And look at the path here. It starts off with G:/heraldry, which again is a file cabinet. Now, if we click on source view and type in MDW4, this is a document that I downloaded from, or this image rather, of the document I downloaded from Google Books. It's a PDF file and it's linked to this source entry. And it contains will abstracts, Maryland colonial will abstracts. So, and look at the path. It starts off with G:/source records, another one of my file cabinets. Now let's go back to the person view and jump to the end of the database where we find Lonely George Wentworth. I haven't yet established how I'm related to George, and as you see, the only information I have about him is his name and his father's name. Let's assume that I just acquired an image file of his will, and I want to store it in my documents file cabinet. But George doesn't yet have his own personal documents directory in the documents file cabinet. So I click on the documents button on the main toolbar to create one. And it generates a suggested address for George in my documents file cabinet. And that is Wentworth, which is his surname, and George followed by his person ID number. Now, I don't have to accept that. I will, but I don't have to. If you don't want to use this scheme that I have built into rootsTrust for generating default personal directories, you don't have to use it. You can simply type in your own path relative to the file cabinet. So I'm going to select that. Now, if I were to add a will event and click on Documents, it opens directly to George's personal directory for documents. You can see the folder is empty because it was just created and there are no documents in it yet. If I close this and then click on Multimedia or Photo Images, the display here opens up at the top of the file cabinet tree and only lists the file cabinets that are suitable for multimedia image files. It doesn't have a default multimedia directory for George Wentworth, so it can't open up to it. So you might ask, how did rootsTrust know to open up to the, just a second, let me open up something here. When I clicked the button to create the default documents directory, it created a path for me in the documents file cabinet. As you see, I have 4 document file cabinets. So how did it know which one to choose? See the check mark here? If checked, this file cabinet is the default for its type. It is used when establishing default directories for documents, multimedia, and heraldry image files. You can see there's another one here, photos people. That is the default for multimedia files for people, for persons. Now let's go back to my G drive and clean things up a little bit here. This is not very well organized. I'm going to add a folder or a directory, whichever you like to call it, new folder, and I'm going to call it File Cabinets. Please note that I have left rootsTrust running, so it's still open. Now, I'm going to move all my file cabinet directories that I identified to you before into this new folder. Heraldry, photographs, source records, and place documents. That's one I didn't identify to you before. I'm going to move them into file cabinets. So now the documents directory contains only documents about persons. So I'm going to change its name to people. And I'm going to change the name of this directory to places. And I'm going to change the name of this directory to cemeteries. And this one to sources. So I'm going to move all the file cabinets that are document file cabinets. Oh, I'm going to have to create a new container file cabinet called documents. And now I'm going to move all the document file cabinet directories into documents. So if we go into documents now, here are all the 4 document file cabinet directories. So now we go back to rootsTrust and we find that we have broken all document and multimedia links, since all the file cabinets have been moved and some of them have been renamed to boot. So if we go to the source view and try to view that PDF file again, we get an error message. If we go back to the person view and try to open, well, let's go back to John Brooke and try to look at his heraldry stuff. We don't see we get an error message. Yes, we do want to continue. So everything is broken. Not to worry. We now go back to the preferences form and the file cabinets, and we're going to change the entries in here to correspond to the changes I made in the Windows Explorer to reflect the new paths. So the cemetery, well, let's change that to file cabinets documents. Be good if I could type. Okay. People. Places. And one more. File cabinets, documents, sources. Check them. It's spelled incorrectly. File cabinets, documents, file cabinets, documents. I have to put the file cabinets in there. And in here as well. There's another error. So I think I've got it now. So now, there we go. We're hooked up again. Go to source. And there's the PDF file again. Go back to John Bingson. Marriage record cannot be found. Documents, people. Okay, I see the problem there. No big deal. Preferences, file cabinets, there's a space missing. Okay. I think I have to refresh that. There we go. File cabinets, documents. Yeah, so we're hooked up there, and the multimedia. Obviously that works, otherwise we wouldn't have gotten this image here. So we're all connected up now with the file cabinets in their new locations, and we never had to close down rootsTrust. I'd like to mention at this point that I could have moved the file cabinets to a totally different hard drive. That would have worked just as well. One last subject, the file cabinet view. This is a tree-like representation of the file cabinets defined in the database. You can have different file cabinets for different databases, by the way. And not all files in a file cabinet are necessarily linked to your database. So this one is not. If the file is not linked and you click on it, the description field will have this text in it. This file has not been linked by rootsTrust. If you right-click a node, you will be presented with a pop-up menu with commands for renaming, modifying the description, and adding or attaching or editing notes that you want to for that particular image, or adding one or more references to the image, if you so desire. If you use the operating system command to rename a file or directory that resides within a rootsTrust file cabinet, you will break the linkage between it and your database. Always use the rootsTrust rename command for that. It renames the file in both the host file system and your database. rootsTrust does not currently support the moving of directories or files within or between file cabinets. This concludes the file cabinet video. Hopefully it has convinced you that file cabinets are a valuable and worthwhile feature of rootsTrust.